All right, let's get our other Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to go. Got our spinning wheels going. 1 and 2. And ceremonious coffee sip to kick off the show. Brought to you by Lion Coffee and Patrick while the chats kind of get going here.
Check out MHH merch for your Broncos for Breakfast mug with Nick Kendell. Nick always gets top billing.
You know what? They spell my name right, so that makes me feel good. I always get it spelled
I always
wrong.
give you top billing too. I put you on top. Even on my channel, I put you on top, I think.
You know what's ironic though, Scott? In my line of work, the lead author, the primary investigator, the PI, is the last one. Whoever's last is the most important of your scientific
that
unknowns.
kind of fits my life. Whenever I try and do the right thing, I end up making somebody mad. So I'm trying to give you later. You're like, yeah, well, in my line, it's the second guy. Well, shite.
No, it's just kind of funny, and I don't know if it's anything else, but in scientific articles and journals, the last article, because they'll have the first two authored, and then it'll be an et al, and then they'll always make sure they have the last person in there because that is the primary investigator of whatever research. But getting way too down the wings here, obviously, in my my science nerdism here. Albert Knopper's coming in. Good morning, y'all. Good to see you, Albert. We appreciate you. Michael Ronquillo. Michael coming in big yesterday over on Scott's channel.
He
Falcons
came in big
podcast.
again last night too. So Michael's just it's Michael Big Deal Ronquillo. And on this show, I think we could call him the icebreaker or something. We need a nickname for Michael because he's coming in and breaking the ice on YouTube with stars all the time.
Yeah, and on Facebook, and we really appreciate you. Michael says, "Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and buck 'em." From the bottom of my heart, buck you too, Michael. We always appreciate you coming in, saying hello to us, and hopefully you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day, good Tuesday. We got our guy Jeremy Sean in the house saying, "Morning, fellas. I like the Stidham signing. It threads the needle of a good young prospect without too much hype and looking over the shoulder pressure on Russell Wilson." We'll get into that some. Obviously, yesterday was a kind of a Jarrett Stidham day, bit from the national media. Mile High Huddle has an article out there based on Peter King's work talking about him, and a chat with Bucky Brooks talking about Jarrett Stidham as well. So there's a little bit of in the air.
For some reason, the backup quarterback
go ahead.
Who couldn't quite cut it in, was chose Mac Jones, took him over. Sorry, I'm trying to fill in for Nick while he's freezing here. Nick and I talked about this just a little bit. It's it's a little interesting. The most interesting signing and the most intriguing signing. It's the guy that the Patriots moved on from for Mac Jones, the team that needed a quarterback after they moved on from Derek Carr. And, he is, I'm not dogging on Jarrett Stidham. I think he's a great signing for who he is. I just think some of the extra talk here it's a little kind of out of left field for me.
It certainly is out of left field, but we'll see how it plays out. David, UConn, morning Broncos family, our backup quarterback doesn't need to outshine our franchise quarterback. If he turns out to be a good backup, then we got to steal. Yeah, and they paid him a lot of talk about Jarrett Stidham yesterday, but guess what? They paid him backup money. 2 years, $10 million. That doesn't scream, the next big thing. That says solid backup that we like, that we paid fine money for. But I mean, just looking over at Scott's team, the Atlanta Falcons, they paid Tyler Heineke more than that.
10. What double. Was the deal they paid double that. That. They gave him 10
per. So big difference there. And guys, good news.
Talk about the likes of Geno Smith and Daniel Jones getting 40. Yeah. It's the quarterback numbers are crazy. It's a good signing. Don't get me wrong. We'll get into more of it. We'll keep saying some of our good mornings with Mark Schrader coming in. Yella, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Good morning as always.
Yeah, and good news, chat. This should be my last show with this computer. Chad said it was coming yesterday or today. Of course, doesn't come in early in the window. So this will hopefully be the last show. I'll even leave work earlier today to get everything set up on the new one, assuming it does come in. Chase Wellner saying, "I'll say this: if we're nitpicking the quarterback 2 signings, things are looking up."
I love that comment, Chase.
Yeah,
I love that comment.
Yeah,
I
agree. I agree. I think the big thing about this Jarrett Stidham signing is not so much the quarterback 2 implications. It is the implications on quarterback 1. And I don't know if things are looking up if we're looking at it with that lens. Unfortunately, not to be a Debbie Downer in that, but everything comes back to Russell Wilson, even when it's not about Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it is. So the implications of QB1, considering how you had last year, this is somebody that could put some pressure on on quarterback one. And there's so much pressure on Russell Wilson that he's not going to notice that he's always had a backup quarterback. He's not even going to notice that. The pressure on Russell Wilson is going to be internal to play better. It's not going to be, okay, I'm looking over my shoulder because there's this hot shot behind me. That's not it. It's I'm looking in front of me. And if what I see in front of me isn't up to par, I've got problems. It doesn't matter who is back there.
Yeah.
Unless it's Brett Rippon and you're the one running the team, aka Broncos, or a la Broncos 2022.
And 2021 and 2020. But Jesse Hilborn, morning, y'all. Hope the day is starting off on the right foot. Go Broncos. We hope so too. Oops, sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Scott.
I want to say good morning to Kathy. Kathy, I saw your Twitter post. Hope you're feeling okay. So know that can be rough sometimes. So we're thinking about you and hope you are doing well. And if we can provide an hour of entertainment for everybody, well, we're happy to do so. So hope you're doing well this morning.
And she wanted Gardner Minshew. Is Gardner Minshew still out there?
No, he was signed by the Colts.
Colts. Okay. Well, I think he's got a better chance.
Yeah, I think they got a good deal. So it was the Eagles signed Marcus Mariota for about double what the Colts signed for Gardner Minshew, which was about what the Broncos signed Jarrett Stidham. So if I go through those three backup types, which was half what the Falcons signed for Taylor Heineke. So if I go through those four backup quarterbacks and say Heineke was 10, Mariota is going to be 5 to 8, and the other two were 5 and 5. I like Taylor Heineke. I think he is probably, if I could pick one quarterback to come in and start out of that bunch, I probably would have picked him.
Yeah.
Especially for Arthur Smith and what he does in that running offense. So, yes, you're paying a premium, but I think it's a good move because they're starting quarterbacks in the second year of a third-round contract. So he's nothing. They're put $11 million into their quarterback room. I think the Eagles have probably got the worst of that deal because they're paying the most for someone I don't really consider an upgrade over Gardner Minshew or Jarrett Stidham. So I think they probably got the worst of that bunch. And then Gardner Minshew coming in and he's coming in the backup for somebody who's not even there yet, but he could come in and start and be a stable pony until whoever they draft comes in and is ready, or trade for Lamar Jackson, which I still don't think is completely off the table. And then I think the Broncos got a great deal also. So, they've done very well. So lots going on. And Steve Kennedy has found us on YouTube. He had coming into the chats on Broncos for breakfast and had kept finding the really small streams. And I'd see him kind of in there just talking with himself. I'm like, Dad, dude, check this one out. Go check out YouTube or one of the bigger Facebook streams. So he found it. Welcome in.
Good morning, Steve. Also wanted to say hello to Bastian coming in here saying first time catching you guys live. Well, good to see you. Also, Guten Tag, greetings from Germany across the pond. I am German myself. I don't know if you can see the German hat in the background here too. So I always look repping my motherland there. So good to see you, Bastian. Welcome in. Malcolm Brown, hello from Homer, Alaska. Was there an earthquake near Homer recently? I was thinking about you, Malcolm, actually. I thought I saw that there was an earthquake outside of there. So hopefully everything is okay. Michaela Israel, good morning, guys. Good to see you. Kevin Gray in the house, too. Morning, what's up, Broncos country? Lance Johnson coming in saying good morning from Prosper, Texas. Fellas, got to say a little Southern accent. Good morning. Broncos country has no boundaries, absolutely. And Lance coming in saying, hey, Scott, what jersey do you got on?
I bet Nick could guess.
Chelsea. Yep,
it's the right colors. So yeah. I'll wear the colors, but this is still my team. So it's a Chelsea and Broncos colors or Auburn colors. I went to Auburn too, so the burnt orange and navy blue works for me just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel Yost saying good morning, Mile High Huddle in Broncos country. Has anyone seen an orange and blue sunrise yet in the sky? It's cloudy, foggy here in Seattle, so I have not. But summer's around the corner, so hopefully
and
it'll
dark.
And dark still. It's 6. I've been up since 5:30, so it's all good. DJ Capo and the LH Bulldogs saying good morning. I definitely agree. Quarterback put some pressure on Russell Wilson. Unless the Broncos brought in, like you mentioned, Scott, unless the Broncos brought in Brett Rippon again, or a 7th round nothing quarterback, there was going to be pressure. Getting into it a little bit more, though, I think the weird dynamic of this all is that this is a move and a signing and somebody that was brought in under Sean Payton. And what have we seen now with the offensive line? Not complete turnover, but pretty massive turnover across that unit there. What are we seeing with the wide receiver room now? Broncos sounds like they're really we're just taking phone calls, really shopping Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, and have been in on Allen Lazard and have been in on Adam Thielen, turning over the wide receiver room. What's to say that, Russell Wilson and that quarterback room wouldn't be turned over as well if it wasn't for that contract? They probably would be because of his play
Probably would
last
have been,
season.
yeah. I mean,
But,
if there was no dead cap, you would have moved on from Russell Wilson already.
Yes.
Sorry, you can't get those picks back now, but you could have reinvested but the thing is, we get this question a lot, and we got it from Michaela last night, and Michaela's not on. You and I get it a lot, and we've answered it a lot, and I thought I actually had cut it up into a separate, but why doesn't Russ just restructure his contract? Clear up some space. Because 3 reasons why, and I'll say this again real quick. We hear that all the time. They just restructure. It's almost like an automatic. It's like, if we need more cap space, we'll just restructure our highly paid guys. 3 things. 1, you don't want to add more years to his deal. Restructuring is basically guaranteeing that he's going to be there longer. You don't want to do that yet. 2, you've got to have some leverage with him typically. Either you want to pay him more and you want to keep him longer to free up some space, or you have the ability to get rid of him. Graham Glasgow, you could have said, hey, dude, we're going to cut you, or you can take $2 million. He says, I'll take the $2 million. Graham restructures his contract. The third reason in there is this was the one I was going to get to, was he doesn't have a high cap hit yet. Right now, it's only in like 22. If we look at cap hits by quarterback, he's going to be middle of the pack probably at best. Next year is when it accelerates big time, and it starts to come even with the dead cap number, where you're the same off financially if you keep him or get rid of him. Right now, if you were to get rid of him, it would actually cost you more. So we've talked about Russell Wilson. If you don't want him, you mothball him. You put him on the bench and you say, go practice with the practice squad. That's what they do in soccer. Go practice with the reserves. But that's not going to happen for a restructure yet. But again, Nick, just to repeat myself again, the pressure on Russell Wilson, it's not Jarrett Stidham so much. It's everything else. I mean, you can't tell me that Russell Wilson wasn't feeling boatloads of pressure last year. He wasn't necessarily going to lose his starting job, but he's a professional. He's got pride. He's being embarrassed out there. And you could see it was affecting him, obviously. He's feeling pressure. The pressure is going to come. The pressure is not from behind him. It's right out in front of him.
Yeah, pressure all around, honestly. I mean, it is. I think it's still behind him. They could draft a guy too. It's just the whole situation. Miguel coming in here with the stars. Good morning, fellows. Why did the NFL move away from fullbacks? You would think an extra lead blocker would stay an advantage, right? The fullback is not really an athlete out there in comparison to other positions most of the time. And the fullback doesn't really lend itself to athletes in space in the pass game. That's where the NFL has been trending. And also we have pretty direct data that shows if you're trying to run the football, the less guys you have in the box, the better you're going to be. No duh, right? But if you have but if you have a fullback in there, guess what? Teams are going to put more guys in the box because you have more people to account for. So,
and third reason, it's not an easy role to fill. Frankly, a guy who's, built like a fire hydrant and wants to run into a wall 50 times a game. It's a mother of a position. And I'm not going to get to carry the ball. I'm going to be running into their toughest guy on the field, and we're just going to butt heads 50 times a game. Coming up from now in the NFL, sure, I'll make $2 million to do that, and hopefully I make my money and can live long enough and make enough money that I don't have severe health problems. You try getting a kid to play that up through the youth. Nobody wants to play fullback. Nobody wants that job. So if you're missing them in youth football, you're missing them in high school football, you're missing them in college football, guess what? Not a whole lot of them in the NFL either. It's not a fun position to play. So you miss out on some of those guys as well because, hey, I'd rather go do something else. Defense would be a lot more fun than fullback.
And a lot of those guys are tight ends nowadays, or even sometimes running backs, out of the backfield, kind of bigger bodies, pass catchers. And football in general, trying to create explosive plays, and the fullback itself in the run game, hasn't lended itself to explosive plays. Now I think we've reached the point where some of them are so exotic, teams that use fullbacks that other teams don't really have the personnel to match what a team does from that. And then if you get an opposing defense in base because you are trotting a fullback based offense out there, then you can create some explosives because you're against space and they have a loaded box and there's more space on the boundaries and deep. But we can have a whole football philosophy and team building and personnel discussion on
Yeah, our
the
best
merits of the
fullbacks were
fullback.
basically known for what they could do with the ball in their hands too. You know, Zonka, Riggins, some of those. God, Tony Richardson was one of those guys at Auburn who played for a long time with the Chiefs. He was so good. I think unheralded compared to some of those other names, but it's just a mother of a position. You know, you're lucky if you can find one of those guys. So, but good question, Miguel. And I'm sure you'll be happy to find somebody who's been playing 8 years and is in the fullback position now. Austin H says, is it possible that Brett Rippon still comes back on a vet min for quarterback 3? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
Love him at quarterback 3.
Yeah, and if he's not, then you know, hey, do you want to come in as a passing assistant, a special assistant to the team? That's where he's
heading.
That's his path.
Absolutely. Want to say hello to some people coming in. Chase Wellner, morning. Jamal Killings, good to see you. Our guy Ethan, good morning, gents. Good to see you. Always good to see our guy DWI guys. Fallen Sloth in the house. Good morning, Broncos country. Hope you all doing well. We're doing pretty well. Benjamin Hayward, good morning, Nick and Scott. Do you guys think we'll draft a center? Well, you can check out yesterday's show where we ran a mock draft, and with pick 68 overall, we took Joe Tipman, Wisconsin center.
I forgot to save that. We guess we could screenshot it, but usually, you know, we save the graphic that gets built. So yeah, it starts at about 42 minutes on yesterday's Broncos for Breakfast, Benjamin. So check us out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went back and forth on it, Scott. I think if I was really in charge looking at this roster, I'm almost like too forward thinking when it comes to the draft, that like I know center is such a need immediately. But then when I look at the Broncos depth chart at tackle, I'm like, God, if Matthew Bergeron is there, it's so hard to find tackles at all. I probably would have taken the tackle and then kicked the can and thought I could have found a center later. Just because right now your backup tackles are Isaiah Prince, and I'm going to be honest with you, Scott, we cover this team. I had no idea who the backup left tackle was on the depth chart. It's D. Lucio or something.
I would have said like Calvin Anderson last year. So I'm thinking, you know, but you can get guys like that. Okay, if I'm getting reserves, I can spend $1 million and get my reserves. Cam Fleming was a solid reserve as a third guy. I'd send him $3 million and let's have him be the swing tackle. I'm okay with that.
Yes.
And then I can address it because if I can get a 10-year center.
Yes.
I mean, again, it just to me is there's analytics and value and all that stuff, and then there's just instincts and gut feeling. And there's been a war that's gone on between those two for, you know, since the Moneyball era. Use both. I'm absolutely use both. You know, use some common sense. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying for me, if you could grab one of the top centers and plug and play for 10 years, thank you. That helps the team right away. And two, I've sorted a position, you know, that's taken care of. You know, whatever I got, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Where I can then still address the tackle position because I've got my starters under contract. I can get cheap backups via free agency. I can still address the future next year, and my center position is already sorted for this season.
Yeah,
that's my thinking on it.
I agree with you overall, and I think
assuming you're pretty even,
that's the thing. I think Bergeron's a top 50 prospect, and I think Tipman's a top 80 prospect.
Yeah, and see, then you go with the higher prospect. You're not reaching for a need. I'd be all about it with that. So we'd look at our board that we'd put together and say that Bergeron's the better prospect. Okay.
And he plays, yep. So that's what I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, I should have pushed back a little harder on that, but it's just a mock. We'll have another chance on another Monday. Denver Luke coming in. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well, guy. Clayton coming in. Morning, Broncos country. Nothing like starting a Tuesday morning, your podcast, and walking on the treadmill. Hell yeah, getting those steps in. I walked about 8 miles yesterday, so getting everything ready. We got 1,000 calories so far. Smash that like button and share, guys. Scott's also a major walker, so getting those steps in as well. So we're all about that. I'll listen to a podcast.
I'm a
double time.
Freaking crazy step guy, literally crazy. One of these days it'll break, but now I'm on 5 years and 3 months straight without missing a day of 10,000 steps.
That's pretty good.
My next milestone will be 2,000 straight days. Yes, that's insane. I know. I'm the head lunatic here. This is the lunatic fringe. I'm head lunatic.
I think it's the head coach of Utah, Kyle Whittingham, has like worked out or lifted weights like 15 years in a row or something and hasn't missed a day, and he's like had the flu and like been sick, and he's like, no, the
That's
streak
awful.
must go on.
That's the hardest part. It's like you kind of just stumble around outside going up the hill. You're like, I'm gonna lay down in this bush. Someone will end up calling an ambulance, and I'll be really embarrassed.
Duke Rose, hey Nick and Scott. Hey Scott, thought those were Tennessee Volunteers colors with the orange with minus the blue. No, Scott's that's fighting words with Scott.
Probably a little bit, just because they get washed out some. They were a little darker because you can see that Nick's is a little darker. I'll wear a shirt for 20 years, so this will end up being yellow before too long. By the time it washes out.
That's I always end up eventually getting some sort of bleach stain or on my shirts. I don't know how, but I have a really nice Broncos Henley sweatshirt, and it's got a little bleach stain. I'm like, how did that happen? Shiloh coming in. Good morning, fellas. Zeus also says hello. I think that's the German Shepherd, so very cute. And we got Zach Power saying, why not draft Bergeron and Tippmann and not the running back? Because Jahmyr Gibbs is literally perfect for the Broncos, and third round is where you want to be taking that guy. And Gibbs' average mock draft position, his consensus big board spot is like 35 overall. We got him at 67.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, we're talking about, where do you have him on your board? And if you've got a guy in the 30s at 60, I don't care what position he's playing, you're taking that guy in the 30s.
Yeah.
Even if he's a quarterback, I might be able to spin him next year for a second round pick. I can do something, that trust your board, but don't be dumb about it. We've got 66 and 67 of our ranked prospects, and 67's a punter. Well, no. We'll move some. We'll hold off on that one. You do still have to put a little bit of positional value in there and some common sense. But if you got a guy that's 30 spots above that's still on the board when you're picking, you're taking him. And you still need a running back too. You're still fitting a need. The guy would come in and play, get 200 touches next year. That wasn't Bergeron or Tippmann. And Tippmann. We're taking Gibbs. Now who? It was that was the for sure guy that was going out of those three.
Yeah, and I think Gibbs last year for Alabama was their leading pass catcher as well in terms of receptions, and we've talked about ad nauseum how much Sean Payton utilizes the running backs in the pass game. So that was never a question. As soon as he was there, we ran that in. That mock that was a PFF thing, I think, because they devalue the running back so much that that's probably not a reality situation. I saw that Devon Achane actually went before him in that, which is also just doesn't make any sense to me. But we'll be interesting to see if he's there. And honestly, I like Gibbs enough that if the Broncos could package 67 and Cortland Sutton and move up to like 45 and he's there, I would, because I think of the utilization of the weapons that they use, there's going to be less targets available potentially for the wide receiver and more targets available for the running back.
I saw so many decent wide receivers and running backs available when we were picking, and I was like, I don't want to trade up. It's like, if that happens that way, we'll see.
I think Gibbs
is how the board goes. Though. Lawrence is coming with some big stars, getting the refill. Yeah, it's getting just a little low in there. So maybe I'll have to get up because I poured less today. I was trying to cut back on my caffeine just a little bit lately. So I only poured, 20 ounces instead of like 28.
Lance with words of wisdom. Nick, bleach stains come from bleach. Yes, they do. Probably cleaning something and got it on there. Bummed, though. And Dom said he got a burn on his really nice Broncos jacket from having a little bit too much fun with Snoop Dogg. So that's good time. So happy belated birthday to D-Generation X.
We're within 2 months of each other, I think. Mine was in January.
The big 50. Good for you. Yeah, it was a good one. And Zach also asking if Gibbs was taken and it was Charbonnet, would it have even close? I do like Gibbs and it's third round. So I would probably not take. It depends on how the board falls. I think you have to have a conversation about Charbonnet and Achane out of Texas A&M there for the Broncos in the third round. But I'd probably punt on that for a more valuable position. But it will be interesting to see how it falls, no doubt. Clayton turns 40 on March 24th. So we got a lot of, is that still Pisces season? I don't know. I'm not into that.
I don't know what comes after. See, I kind of know it by either by significant others. And I don't think I dated anybody. And I've had early March, late April, but nowhere right in the middle. So I don't know where it cuts over.
We got Stuart Sanchez coming in saying, morning, guys. Good to see. Albert says he turns 55 on the 31st this month. So a lot of birthdays coming up, man. There must be something in the air with the Broncos at that time of year.
Good people. I don't believe in that astrology stuff. Yeah, but like 4 of the most, and I'm one of those, I've got a tight group. I don't have like a zillion friends. I've got a tight group of friends. And like 4 of the 5 closest people in my life were all born in the first week of March. It's a little weird. When's your birthday?
February 6th.
It's pretty close. So it's a month off. Okay, yeah. My dad's is Groundhog's Day. It's February 2nd. So say hello.
Yeah.
But it's a little strange. I'm like, literally 1, 2, 3, 4 of my closest, including my wife, the closest people in my life were all born in the first month of March. It's like, maybe there's something to that. The way chemistry works when your brain's forming. I don't know. Who knows?
Lord only knows. But I'm Broncos Moon, Hawkeye, Hawkeye sign.
All right, I'm gonna have to bail him out here. A little coffee.
Hopefully my computer's catching up here.
We're gonna have to pump some caffeine into Nick's computer here. At least give that hamster wheel a jolt on that graphics card he's got. Should be done today. I'm excited. We'll even crank this thing up to like 58K on the modem when we start streaming when Nick gets the new machine.
Should be coming soon. Today, that's what they say. So anyway, back to Jarrett Stidham here. I have the information pulled up on my phone, so that way it doesn't crap out my graphics card. So we'll see how that plays out. But Jarrett Stidham was kind of a little bit of the talk for Broncos country in the NFL grand media, the overall NFL at large media yesterday, where you had 2 articles come out yesterday. One from pretty darn bigwig in the NFL media, Peter King over at NBC Sports. Jeremy says, I feel like I'm getting a new computer at this point. Everyone's winning, right? It's the people's computer. This is a commune. And Albert saying, start working on your mailbox.
From Albert. Albert, love you. I've thought about that, but I'm not going to push you when someone's giving you a present. I'm not going to, hey, where's my mailbox? But I haven't stopped thinking about it, Albert. But I appreciate you on that, dude. So very cool. I can't wait to take a picture and show everybody else too.
What's the mailbox? This is news to me.
Albert does custom mailboxes. So he's doing like a Falcons Broncos mailbox for me that I can throw in the back for everything. So it's very cool.
That is cool. That's awesome. Elliot D, also awesome. $5 over on YouTube saying, good morning from Page, Arizona. Off topic, but how do you think Jonathan Cooper will do this year? Love the input, guys. Jonathan Cooper is, to me, on the Malik Reed path, where he is a solid backup player. But right now, considering the turnover, considering the potential, scheme change and everything, and considering the cost control, maybe you can flip him for a 6th-round pick and you send Cooper in a 7. He's a fine player to have as a backup. He's been good out there in bursts. Seems like a great dude as well. But he's kind of that 4th or 5th edge rusher on your roster. And if the Broncos draft an edge in round 3, round 4, round 5 to reset that contract, and you can get a little bit of surplus value off of Cooper and moving a guy who is 2 years left of control, something you consider. Now, I'm not saying that they'll for sure trade him. I think he's a much better player than Malik Reed was, personally. But again, he's kind of on that back end of the roster right now for me, where you might have a reset of a contract and you might be able to squeeze out a little bit of extra value moving on from him.
Yeah, I think I like how Nick has thought about this. If he stays healthy, he's outplayed his 7th-round status. You've gotten more out of him for that. If you got 1 year left in his deal, he's kind of on the bubble. Do you want to keep him? Do you want to pay him again? Maybe we've got 3 years of decent productivity out of him. Maybe we can trade him and get after this year. I'm sorry. Yeah, after this year. I would keep him for this year for sure.
I might not.
Depending on the offer, always.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a price.
Yeah.
But if he can go in and have a decent year, maybe he plays his way in. Mm-hmm. He's been a little banged up. Who hasn't? I mean, I was like, I can say that. I'm like, wait, am I thinking of the right guy? It doesn't matter. They've all been a little banged up. Mm-hmm. That's just like a copy and paste. Battled injuries in his first 2 seasons with the Denver Broncos. Who? All of them. That I like that, maybe you can, it's a good option to have when you can get that kind of productivity at a good position in the 7th round. Jonathan Cooper was a hit on his draft pick. Maybe you can still flip him and do something else, or he steps up because Randy Gregory can't stay on the field because Baron Browning has battled injuries and Jonathan Cooper grabs his chance with with two hands. And Elliot D, thank you so much from Page, Arizona. Thanks for getting up with us this morning.
And the
On
last
the
thing,
other side of the plan, let me get ODDF real quick. 182 says, good afternoon from Ireland. So cool. He says, by the way, who's drafting the penguin in the background, Scott? He's locked up for years, so that's my daughter's. He's a phone holder, actually, and right now you can see he's holding my phone charger.
Oh, okay.
So I like to keep him in the background. And if this is your first time watching the show, my God, these guys are annoying until you get to know us. I appreciate
really
it. We're
annoying.
a little off the rails today, so we're having a little fun. And normally we're a little more serious than this. So if it's your first time watching and you find us irritating, we apologize. We're not always this bad.
I mean, if you ask it, then we'll answer. We're here to have a good time. But getting back to Jonathan Cooper, the other part here that I want to talk about is I think your depth at edge, especially in that level 3, 4, 5 pass rusher, is pretty good. And if you talk about let's say a good one falls to you that you really like in our mock draft yesterday, Scott, where we took one in the 4th or 5th round, we took a Yaya
Diaby, Louisville,
from Louisville.
Love him.
Yeah, really good player. Now all of a sudden you have Zach Allen, who is an inside-outside pass rusher who might play a fair amount of edge. You have Randy Gregory. You have Baron Brown, and you have Nick Benito, who you invested highly in last year. You have Jonathan Cooper. You also have somebody who I was really excited about signing last year. I'm glad he got a redshirt year, but Christopher Allen, who was thought of as a top 50 kind of prospect before he got injured early in the 2021 season and got a redshirt year last year, but he might factor into it as well. A really talented player from Alabama. So we'll see how it plays out, but I definitely think it could be interesting. And do we really know enough about the new scheme to jettison for Cooper? No, we do not. We also don't know what the roster is going to look like, but it is a reasonable outcome to think that could be a possibility of why the Broncos would move on from him. Maybe, again, you get more value creating that roster spot, unloading that salary cap, and flipping a 7th round pick to a 6th round pick.
Lance asked, do we really know enough about the new scheme to jettison Cooper for a pick? I'm going to flip that question around on you a little bit, Lance. It's not about Cooper. I mean, it's not about the scheme. We know enough about Jonathan Cooper to possibly jettison for a pick, depending on who you think you could get in return. What round did we get Yaya Diaby? 5th?
5th. Yep.
5th round. Okay. So Yaya Diaby, I know enough about Cooper to know I'd probably rather have Yaya Diaby. That if I said I could get, hey, you want Cooper here? We got him in the 4th yesterday.
But no, we got 4 years of him also.
Yeah, you got more cost control. So I know enough about Cooper to say I would rather have the guy who's 6'3 1/4", 265 pounds with 34-inch arms, who ran a 4.51 with a 10-foot broad jump and was really productive at the Senior Bowl. I'd rather have him than Jonathan Cooper. If you said I could make that trade right now, I would. So, and that's just based on traits, physical ability, my eyeball scouting, scheme independent. I don't care what the scheme is. I think he is a higher ceiling prospect. So it's not really about the scheme. It's about the player. And I think there's a little bit more limited upside. Jonathan Cooper went later because he didn't test like Baron Browning did. Baron Browning had similar size, much better athlete. So Lance, it's not about the scheme. For me, it's a little bit more about what I could get in return, and could I upgrade physically and with the ceiling on Cooper with the pick that I got back.
Yeah,
or package them together. If I got a 6 for Cooper and I took a 6 and a 7th and move up to the 5th, I'm getting dizzy with all these numbers, and got Yaya Diaby, I would.
Yep, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Lance says VJ doesn't play rookies. I don't think there's going to be any chance for rookies starting on this team regardless, but on positions like edge rusher, defensive line, cornerback, you're going to see rookies get some snaps. It's just the reality of the rotation of those kind of positions. Stuart Sanchez, quick question from Dallas, Texas. What are your views on the corner? I think he meant Stay, not Slay. But unless you meant Darius Slay.
It was like Darius Slay. Wasn't one of the Slays. Didn't they hit free agency at one point?
He was going to, and then they didn't actually release him, and they worked out the deal, and he's back in Philly. So if it was Slay, Slay's not an option. Draft, we're sticking out with Mathis and Bassie. So I talked about tackle earlier, the depth in the tackle position being concerning. You can say the exact same thing about the boundary cornerback position specifically. Patrick Surtain and Damari Mathis, Damari Mathis starting, I think he's a good cost control player, but I would like some competition for him on the boundary of an equivalent caliber player. Just, get the best ones out there. I don't think he's proven enough yet to be like all in on him. But behind Mathis and PS2, you have Jaquan McMillan, undrafted free agent last season, who played well in half a game of action, and Faion Hicks, who got hurt early on and more of a slot player. So Broncos don't have any really boundary cornerbacks. They moved on. They released Lamar Jackson yesterday, the cornerback Lamar Jackson from Nebraska, not the quarterback from Louisville. But the Broncos, I think
I'm
they have to bring
proud of you with Louisville. I'm just so proud of you.
I can learn. Lewis Vile.
Louisville.
Lewis Viley. Bassey's more of a backup slot. Kawan Williams is a starting slot, so they really do need some cornerback depth.
And Jeremy says, what we said all along, there was no way Ronald Darby was coming back on that contract.
Yep.
Now, can you restructure him in advance? So I need to clear space so I can get my A1 targets at free agency. I think the Broncos, for the most part, have done that. It's hard to picture them going out and getting another 10+ million guy right now. So we've done that. What do we have left? Can we go out and reapproach some of the guys we've cut? Hey, Graham, you want to come back on $2 million again? I wouldn't be for that personally. But I'm not the one that's writing the checks and filling out the roster. Darby at 10 or 12, no, he was Gonzalez on that contract. Wasn't ever going to happen. But 3 or 4, let's see what you get while you're out there. If I'm the Buffalo Bills or a contender and I say, okay, I can offer this guy 5 or 4 and he might come here and I don't have to necessarily worry about him being healthy constantly, but healthy in time for the playoffs or a stretch run, that might be worth it. But I wouldn't want to bring him in on a high dollar deal and count on him because of his health reasons.
Yeah, you couldn't do it. And there's still some cornerbacks out there. I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos brought somebody in. Marcus Peters, man corner, ball skills.
Did not see this one. So Glasgow re-signed with Detroit. Good for him.
Yes. Yep.
We talk about you can go back again, and he's. I don't want to run him down, but he's just. When I saw his contract when I first started covering this team, and I saw the way he played, I'm like, what were you thinking? How did injured. Happen?
He suffered an injury in his hip, and his mobility was zapped pretty seriously after that, unfortunately.
Yeah. But thanks, y'all. I did not see that one, and okay, that makes sense because I didn't see that, and I dove into the NFL head first with this team 2 years ago. So
yeah,
a lot of the stuff that happened, I've had to learn since then. But he wasn't good enough, and he wasn't playing well enough, and his mobility again. I liken the question we got a lot is like, why doesn't this team run more screen passes? Because your offensive lineman cannot move.
Yeah.
You're supposed to count 1, 2, 3 release, and then you go out into the flats and you start blocking. 1, 2, 3 release, the ball's there, and the here come the linemen trailing.
Yeah.
Well, they're not supposed to be behind the running back. They're supposed to be in front of the running back. They just couldn't move.
Yeah.
Glasgow was an improvement on Lloyd Cushenberry last year, and really helped the team. So therefore, would you have considered bringing him back on a lesser deal? I think you would have considered it, but that ship has sailed. He's done.
Yeah. And talking about cornerbacks, just wanted to run through some of the names still available. Marcus Peters out there, William Jackson, former first-round pick, Shaquille Griffin, only 27 years old still. He struggled in Jacksonville, but had some good seasons out there with the Seahawks. Bradley Roby, friend of the show, right? Former Bronco Bradley Roby. Ronald Darby, name still out there also. I think it was Kathy mentioned Rock Ya-Sin is out there as an option. Definitely you could consider him. And then there was one more name who I thought was out here. Maybe I'm mistaken. But yeah, there's some
guys out there. There'll be depth guys out there. And Jeremy says this is, I kind of always like to poke fun at the commentary around players sometimes. Can't move, can't block, can't stay healthy. He's too expensive. We need to trade him.
First round pick coming, baby.
Yeah. You didn't do a good sales job on him on right there. No, you're gonna have to cut him, and you're gonna have to eat a little dead cap. Not in this case, but sorry, I got news for you. When you start the description of a player with 3 negatives, you're not gonna get much back. You're gonna have to part ways.
So pivoting hard left here, back to Jarrett Stidham here. 2 articles came out yesterday, one from Peter King and one from Bucky Brooks, who's covered the NFL for a bit. And Jarrett Stidham was the main topic. And I have the articles here on my phone. because I'm afraid my computer will crash. But Peter King says the most fascinating signing of the first week, quarterback Jarrett Stidham, 2 years, $10 million, $5 million guaranteed after starting a grand total of 2 games in his 4-year NFL life. But one of those games convinced Sean Payton to take a chance on him. After Derek Carr was benched in Vegas in late December to protect them from injury guaranteed, may be important to remember later, Stidham would go on to face the best defense in the NFL in the 49ers and put up 365 passing yards, 3 touchdown passes, and 34 points. So now Peyton buys him to be Russell Wilson's backup, and nothing needs to be said to Wilson about it. If Wilson, by midseason 2023, is having similarly disastrous season to his first one in Denver, Peyton won't have to punt on the season. He'll have an intriguing backup, young quarterback with tools waiting in the wings, but Peyton did not go hard after Stidham to put pressure on Wilson. He considered his best options a backup quarterback and thought he could play it safe for around the same money with an Andy Dalton type or a swing for the fences on a young prospect with significant upside. He went with the latter, and I like the logic. So he went with the upside guy, and there's a little bit of an intrigue there with Russell Wilson option.
Yeah, he's 26 years old. That's a baby in quarterback years. When we talk about some of these guys coming out, they're a little bit older. So what? You can play quarterback. If you can play quarterback, you can play quarterback for another 10 years. If you told me I'd get a 10-year player, I'm drafting him. I'd be very interested. Peter King says he can't wait for Nick's new computer. I was waiting to jump in case he froze up in that read. Roderick. Again, it's, most interesting, most intriguing. The move itself wasn't all that intriguing. Jarrett Stidham is a backup quarterback, a good quality signing. The intrigue will be around Russell Wilson. That's where the intrigue is, and no, you wouldn't have to punt. He's a much better quarterback than Brett Rippon. That's no knock on Brett. Brett, you can't put in what God left out is kind of the saying in scouting and evaluating. And Brett just doesn't have the physical tools. He doesn't have the arm, the size to be a plus NFL quarterback. It's just, I'm sorry, I don't like saying stuff like that. Usually I try and hedge it a little bit better, but he just wasn't meant to be there. So let's see here real quick. Let me block this guy. Go away.
I just wanted to point out that Henry Ruggs is too fast, used the wrong 2 in that.
Whatever. Just go away. You're boring me.
Yeah.
So there was someone, if you're listening to this after the fact, someone has come into the chat and just walked in and just started flaming us.
It's spamming also.
Yeah, but that's boring. It's not even good trash talk. But it was a great move. Most intriguing. The intriguing part will be, again, is Russell Wilson done or not? That is the intriguing storyline around the Denver Broncos for 2023.
And it will be very interesting to follow that going forward. We also got Austin H. first before I move on to Bucky Brooks talking about it, saying, you think Broncos draft a wide receiver with one of their 3s? If so, who would be there at 67, 68? Scott and I talked about this a bit yesterday, and we'll continue to do that as the draft comes closer and closer. But there are certainly some options for the Broncos at wide receiver to consider at 67, 68. A name that I would have circled there that I don't think will be there, but could be there for the Broncos is Tyler Scott from Cincinnati. Down the field vertical threat, tested pretty well, not crazy speed, but a vertical player and can stack guys deep pretty quickly. I also really think that I'm a huge fan. Probably my favorite wide receiver in this class, considering he's not the best one, but my favorite is probably Cedric Tillman from Tennessee. I think he's just a monster. He was dealing with a high ankle sprain this last season. You go back to his tape from 2021, though, and it is pretty damn good. I think he probably would have been a first-round caliber pick if he had stayed healthy this season. I think the tools are that good. But he's more of an X, so I'm not sure if that's the type the Broncos are looking for. We'll see. But there's a number of options there at 67, 68 that the Broncos could consider. They'd also could consider one further down. I saw, I think it was Benjamin Albright linked the Broncos to Trey Palmer and Bryce Ford.
When we were picking, Trey Palmer was there. Tank Dell was there. So, yeah, depending on what you want to do, if you've been working this hard to try and get a replacement, for the receiver room, and you want to move on from Sutton, et cetera, et cetera. If you move on from Sutton, it becomes a very high possibility you're looking at receiver, one of those first 2 picks in the 3rd round. Trey Palmer was there. Trey Palmer came in 6 foot, 192, 4.33. Yes, please. And like I said, the first time I watched him, I didn't know he was that fast. And that's a compliment, not because he was slow, but because he was running shorter underneath routes and had good hands. I'm like, okay, well, this guy knows how to get open, and he's reliable catching the ball. Oh, by the way, he's a 4.33. What? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm interested for sure.
Yeah, it's but kind of funny from Ben Albright. He listed Trey Palmer and Bryce Ford Wheaton, who I believe were the two fastest 40 times at the combine. So I don't know if Albright, sorted the combine results by the fastest 40 and picked the top two there, or if he has some insight on those two players being linked to Broncos. But we got Eric Windman coming in saying we are not taking a receiver. Maybe not, but I think literally with how the Broncos roster is set up right now, you could almost go any which direction and it would make sense. I think they did a good enough job in free agency, filling immediate holes that outside of the center spot, that you can go any which direction. Now, hopefully they figure out center before the draft because you don't want to be in a position where you have to take one. But wide receivers are certainly on the table. It's not
I
a have
agree.
to, but it's on the table.
With all the talk about Cortland Sutton and I Jerry Jeudy, neither one of them, they don't make sense to me. And I've gone through why. If you want to know again, ask, I'll tell you. But if Sutton isn't on this roster, wide receiver becomes a very real possibility in the draft if no one else has been signed and no one else was replaced. So one of those two spots, interior lineman, I'd try and find a center. And absolutely, I would think that wide receiver would be well on the table.
Yeah, and especially the value of wide receivers. I mean, these guys are getting paid crazy money right now on the open market.
Which is strange. It's like, okay, so we know what the value of the wide receivers, and I just want a third for Sutton. I'm not buying it. I am not buying it. I don't care. I'm not going to believe it until I see it. One of those things like, I don't care what you're saying. I don't care. I don't care what he's saying. You show me what happens, because right now, Sutton for a third does not make sense to me. And if it happens, like I've said, it's because it's a personality thing. It's not a financial or a talent thing. If Sutton goes for a third, it's just not, because that doesn't make any sense.
Might be a medical thing too, possibly.
Then you can't get anything for him. You couldn't trade him for a third if it's medical.
Probably not. Then that's why some of the conversation has been a fourth recently, but we'll see what happens with that. Now, but back to Jarrett Stidham again. Bucky Brooks wrote about him as well yesterday in his article of signings not to overlook. And number one listed on this was Jarrett Stidham. He also talked about it on his podcast yesterday with Daniel Jeremiah. But Bucky Brooks writes, perhaps the former Raiders simply joined the division rival to fill a backup role, but Russell Wilson's struggles in 2022 make the fifth-year pro an intriguing insurance policy for Sean Payton. Stidham's IQ, arm talent, and promising flashes as a spot starter for Las Vegas undoubtedly raised his profile as a developmental player with quarterback one potential. Although Wilson's hefty contract makes it nearly impossible for the Broncos to swiftly unload him if his woes continue, Stidham gives the Broncos a viable option if Payton needs to make a change in order to spark the offense. Furthermore, this signing proves the new coach isn't going to kowtow the team's highest paid player.
You know what that means, right?
Like cater to. Like
yeah, of course. It means this isn't Russell Wilson's team.
Yeah.
This is Sean Payton's team. He's in charge. He's the boss, and that was clear when he took the job.
Yep.
Sean Payton's not going to play second fiddle to anybody. The dude has a massive ego. He's kind of an ass. And that's all good things if he's your kind of an ass, because he's a hell of a coach.
And it says that closes out with that. Not surprising about Payton being not kowtow to his highest paid players. Not surprising when it comes to Payton, but he is indeed the head man in Denver, and this is now his show, and his show in italics. So again, interesting. Maybe it's some projection, maybe it's some posturing here, but a lot of this conversation comes to Russell Wilson. If he struggles this year, Sean Payton is going to pull the plug, and we wouldn't think twice about it. Russell Wilson, I don't know. At some point, we're going to have a conversation about what does Russell Wilson's leash look like. But both of these articles from NFL insiders, people connected to the league, now maybe not directly connected to the Broncos, but connected to the league, make it sound like Stidham is not plan A, obviously, but he's also not just a fill the gap backup. Also,
no,
the Broncos
would be okay plan B. He is a viable plan B without a doubt. And what else could you ask for $5 million in your backup quarterback? It really was a great signing. And you know who we love, who's great for us? Naj Al-Tough. Can't wait to see you again. I feel like with all this, with all this talk, it's like I'm getting excited. Like the season's right around the corner. It's not, but it feels like it is with all these new players and stuff coming in. And which means the meet and greet is right around the corner. So, Naj, you can't ghost us for the whole time next time. He's like, hey, brothers, how you doing? Good to see you. Got to go. Like, well, nice to meet you. The legend. He's in and out. Maybe that's why he is a legend. Says, hey, brothers, we haven't had anyone more than 8 sacks since 2018. I'm concerned about the pass rush. You should be. It has been inconsistent and at times non-existent. Is there anyone you see the Broncos going after that's left in free agency? I think your best pass rush options, and then I'm going to turn it over to Nick, are in-house. And they got to be healthy. A healthy Randy Gregory and a healthy Baron Browning, and those guys can combine for 16 to 20 sacks or so.
Man, this troll needs to get a freaking life.
Yeah, okay. I got him. Dude.
I'll just let you handle that, Scott, because
just, whatever, dude. We're having a good day. Sorry you don't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
I could do this all day.
Yeah.
I even look like the old version of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs do own the Broncos. Congrats.
Yeah, we know.
Good luck.
It's been an ass whooping. We know. We were there. We watched.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I think the Broncos, in terms of adding pass rush, there's still, I think, spots on the roster. Yannick Ngakoue is an option. Frank Clark is still out there. Justin Houston is still out there. There's some, Bud Dupree, I believe, is still out there.
Frank Clark,
also.
did you say?
Yes.
Frank Clark is still out there?
Yes,
there are still some options out there. Now, those guys are going to be expensive. You know,
maybe. They're old.
I know, but they'll want to play on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Von Miller was old. He was still productive.
But he's a superhero. Like,
but again, you know, we're talking about guys that have done well, and Ngakoue is not that old.
No.
He's just kind of a one-trick pony. He is a designated pass rusher. Okay, well, go get me a sack every other game. Finish the season with 8 sacks, because he's had 8 sacks every year since he's been in the league, which is kind of a record.
Yeah.
There's like the guys that have done that are in the same boat with him are Hall of Famers that have had in their first 6 or 7 seasons in the league at least 8 or more sacks. There's only like 5 guys that have ever done it. The other 4 in the Hall of Fame. Ngakoue will be a $10 million guy, but he will guarantee you those 8 sacks, Nosh. Almost guaranteed.
I think you can probably find, if you're looking for edge specifically, a 1-year, $5 million kind of guy, Melvin Ingram, Bud Dupree, not vet minimum, but above that as well, because there's just a saturation of those guys. Are they going to want to come to Denver to be a backup, or are they going to go to a team that's probably more on the playoff guarantee that can, play through, chasing that ring? So we'll see what happens with that. But Naj coming in saying, me too, can't wait to meet up. That'd be great. But I think the area for this roster to add pass rush improvement is probably more so on the interior. I think you have a chance. Maybe somebody like Shelby Harris could add to your 3-4 defensive end look there. There's a rotational piece. And also Keith Brugman brings him up. Calais Campbell, inside-outside pass rusher. You can add. There's going to be plenty of snaps available between right now. Who are your starters on the interior? DJ Jones, Purcell, and Zach Allen inside-outside. I mean, you still have like 30-40% of snaps available out
Help
there.
me out with this one, Nick. This comp with Campbell. I think Campbell's probably got a little bit more size, but as far as production and what they do, how close is Campbell to a Shelby Harris?
Campbell's different because of his size and his mass. I think also he's in his history. He used to have more athleticism, where because of also the size and length, he could play edge more in a heavy defense, where you wouldn't really see that from Shelby Harris. But I think Campbell at this point in his career, probably a better third down sub package kind of guy, where Shelby Harris is probably better first and second down.
But Michael Ranquillo, Michael the Icebreaker Ranquillo, he comes in and let me hit block real quick. Says Seattle Seahawks just released defensive tackle Al Woods. Thoughts, Nick and Scott? Michael, I haven't paid that much attention to him other than, hey, he's getting paid and doing well since high school. He was at Taft High School when I was in California, so I got to see him a lot. So I scouted him then. I haven't really watched him a ton since then, but it seems like the Seahawks have some shaking up to do on the offensive line themselves, because with Shelby Harris gone, with Al Woods gone, they're going to be in first. They're going to be in for some big bodies as well.
And you might be able to get Al Woods. Yeah, maybe. Or Tyree Wilson's an option for them, but we'll see how it plays out for the Seahawks. They also have their pick where they could take maybe a Hall or a Brian Brisset down there. So Al Woods would be interesting. I think you probably can get Al Woods for a similar deal to Mike Purcell, given the age and everything that leans into with that nose tackle spot. But finally, Scott, before we wrap on up here, why all this talk about Russell Wilson being benched for Jarrett Stidham? You have him for all these years. Yada, yada, yada. Russell Wilson, Bucky Brooks hinted at it. Peter King hinted at it. You're kind of stuck with Russell Wilson. The big thing here, with Russell Wilson is the guaranteed money. And I have an article here from Over the Cap. They published it in November last year, talking about the Broncos and the issues with Russell Wilson, and specifically the injury guarantees. Russell Wilson, so real decision for the Broncos will come in 2024. If Wilson is on the roster on the 5th day of the league year in 2024, then he gets his 2025 salary fully guaranteed, $37 million. So the 5th day of the league year next year. It's also 100% guaranteed for injury. So if he gets injured this season and is on the injury report on the 5th day of 2024 next year, 5th league day of 2024 next year, that $37 million for 2025 becomes fully guaranteed. You cannot move on from him. And an additional $4 million becomes injury guaranteed for 2026. So those are all added on to the signing bonus that he got that was spread over the whole duration. That is the dead cap hits that you're going to see if you move on from him after the season. But if he gets injured this season and cannot be moved on from, you can't move on from him this offseason. It'd be after 2025. So it extended a lot of guaranteed extra as well beyond. So interesting.
Yeah, and we saw that happen twice last year. We saw it happen with Derek Carr, who got benched because they were afraid he might get hurt and his contract would guarantee. We saw it with Matt Ryan in Indianapolis. So if Russell Wilson does get benched, you're not going to see him again. That's when he's mothballed. For one reason or another, that's when he gets mothballed. And I mean, just put up in bubble wrap. Don't let this happen because we do not want his contract to guarantee. We are going to want to move on after the season and eat that dead cap hit. Teams can survive. You can't survive a $30 million dead cap hit. You can. It's not fun, but you can.
And then once that cap hit is over, you have a lot of fun that offseason after. Just ask Scott with the Falcons this year on his show. It was jubilation out there with covering the Falcons because oh my God, this is what spending money's like. I love this.
Well, you learn as a general manager how to really find value. You've got to really work hard. It's kind of like college football recruiting. I always caught hell from people. What do you know? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I know I don't have to be much of a scout to figure out who Georgia should be getting. I should be able to scout like this with my hand covered over my eyes and go, I can hear that guy better than everybody else. That's how easy it should be.
So, yeah,
the next level guys are the Georgia Southerns of the world or, the lower Power 5. They have to scout. They have to get all the leftovers. So when you're cash strapped for a couple of years, you've got to do a little extra work and then you have money. So we're not trying to build this up. Hey, it's all going to go in the tank. You're going to have a one lean year and then come back firing. But it's a possibility. Real quick before we get out of here, Keith and Jeremy and John and DeGeneraceX are talking about Shelby. And he says, Shelby Harris felt disrespected in the training, saying, let's ride in an interview right after the Seahawks beat the Broncos. Can he put it behind him? Yeah, he can. He can. I would talk to Justin Simmons. I would talk to Vance Joseph before I would talk to Shelby Harris. And if they said it was good, then I would say, okay, let's talk. Shelby would be interested in coming back under the right circumstances for sure.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see what would happen there with Shelby Harris coming in. I'd be for it. He'd probably have to play for close to league min, but I mean, extend his career, probably still got a house in Denver. It would be great. Michael Ronquillo saying, great show today, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. We appreciate you, Michael. And we appreciate everybody coming in today. I saw Ethan in here as a closer, but maybe he's gonna have to hit us up tomorrow or something. But we appreciate
Michael might close us out today, and he opened the icebreaker, the closer, so he broke the ice, freezing over the top.
Win a full 9 innings, complete game. Michael, did you happen to catch the World Baseball Classic yesterday, Mexico, Japan?
I haven't watched any of it, unfortunately.
Okay, what a game.
I told you what my weekend was like.
Yeah, you've been busy, but it was an incredible game. If you get a chance, check out the highlights. It was a fun one. But guys, that's gonna have to do it for us today. Hopefully, the last show with this computer. I gotta fly, and Scott's gotta fly too. So let's wrap it on up here. Make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you check us out on Apple Podcasts. Leave us your 5-star rating and a review for a chance to win some of the gear. Hey, if you win, hey, ask for the Broncos coffee mug. A lot of fun there. And as the ticker says underneath here, please subscribe, like, and share. If you haven't done so yet, click the thumbs up on the way out over on Facebook. We got a lot more viewers on the Facebook side than the interaction, so we would really appreciate that. And there's Ethan. I see him. Saying great shows as always. Sounds like a Hopkins trade is heating up. Sent the Broncos in on Lazard and Thielen. Why not? because of draft capital. That would be my guess.
Yeah, you wonder what it would take, and frankly, I'd be okay giving up, the pair of thirds for D Hopkins, and he wants to resign, or the third and Sutton. Okay, let's throw that in there.
Yeah,
Then I still have my third. I could still address the center position. That's what's interesting to me. Okay,
yeah.
I need a center more than I need a receiver. But you say why not? I agree, Ethan. Why not? Should be on the phone for sure. Watch out for the Cowboys. I feel like I was reading about the Cowboys being in on Sutton.
Possibly. They just traded
Possibly.
for Brandon Cooks. They're going to add another one.
Then watch out for the Cowboys. That makes sense. It makes sense. You got a big, talented, unhappy wide receiver, Dallas Cowboys.
You're talking about adding him to Dallas on top of Brandon Cooks, who they just traded for yesterday.
Nothing would surprise me with Dallas. So, but I agree with you, Ethan. Why not? I would be on the phone. What's it going to take? Here's a fifth in Cortland Sutton.
Yeah. I'm a little bit concerned, not to make our Chiefs troll in here happy, but I think that a lot of smoke towards Kansas City on that one. But we'll see. Also, there's sounds like the Giants are still aggressively pursuing wide receiver, and they need wide receiver help really badly out there.
So why not? Because there should be some good competition for him if he can be had for cheap, considering where his contract is. His contract is expensive, and he's going to want to sign for a lot of money.
Yeah, and the Arizona Cardinals, the race for Caleb Williams is on. Maybe they go back to that USC well and bring in Lincoln Riley as well. But we'll see. Guys, have a great one. We got to get it out here. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. I will see you again tonight with Carl on Building the Broncos. But until then, go Broncos.